Hello. I am full of breath now, full of tears, full of enrichment by the gift that is black woman life, by the gift that is black life, by the groundedness that Amy just gave me as my heart was beating out of its chest, thinking I would not be able to make it up here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And what I shall share with you today is, in a way, another kind of thank you. It's a letter of rememorialization to those black women, that black life that was in my household in mid-20th century London, when we were not able to breathe, and yet they showed me how to breathe. And in 2021, in the wake of all the black death that we were facing, the murders, the sinking in the dying in the Mediterranean and other seas, the COVID deaths when black life was literally just dying, my heart was broken, and it manifested itself as a kind of heart arrhythmia that is still with me. And I look back because I become grounded by black woman life and by black life. So come with me to 62 Granville Road, Kilburn, Northwest 6th, in the 1950s, because it is your hands that I remember, large and rough, brown but ashen and slightly chapped at the knuckles. It is your hands I remember, your hands in their after-work before bathing state, rough for want of creaming, creaming with cremola for want of cocoa butter in preference to Vaseline. Hands in between tens, the 10 hours of working the machines just finished, in anticipation of the 10 hours of machine working to come. Maybe day shift, mostly nights, always 10. Hands that labour, hands as placeholder for labour, hands as in hired. It is your smell that I remember, the smell of the factory, the smell of its rubber that I remember as the smell of you. The smell that the tires that you remoulded in the factory out on the Western Avenue, that landed on your overalls, went into your skin and never really left. A pungent, rich, enveloping, inviting, though almost choking smell that spoke of your labour and your place in the economy of racial capitalism in its 1950s variant. Your brown hands labouring at work in the city to which you had migrated as a kind of coming home. London City. London City was where you came to, arriving from which port, I don't know. In which year exactly, I don't know. Certainly before 1950, maybe in 1948, in any case, among what is now called the Windrush generation, that symbolic placeholder for our presence on these shores, for our arrival into the cities that acted as the motor of economic reconstruction after the Second World War, at the so-called end of empire that continues, the cities that were the nodal points in empire's circuits of globalization before globalization, a circuit that gathered you up in its flurries and flows and landed you here in the unknown year. Was London is the place for me? London, this lovely city, your refrain, the song that accompanied you, that expressed your desire, that gathered you, well, your labouring hands, as a factor of production, not quite dead, not quite living labour, but as coloured immigrant labour, and put your hands to work on the disused commodity that was the tyre that needed retreading, that was the product of other labouring hands who worked the raw material of rubber that had been honed by still other hands that tapped the trees to make them bleed their latex to be gathered up into this material that we call rubber, that gave off its smell, that landed on your overalls and penetrated into the brown skin of your hands and embodied you for me. the multiple hands, the hired hands that symbolize the invisible chains of connection, not yet called globalization, but global chains anyway, that were the product of empire and its sites thousands and thousands of miles away from your point of departure on your journey to this point of arrival in the heart of empire. It is your hands that I remember. It's your smell that I remember. It is your hands that I remember, brown and soft, wrinkled and cracked at the edges of your nails. It is your hands that I remember in their slightly damp from washing clothes state. Your hands I remember in their adroit lift and drop motion and sloop, sloop, sloop sound as they laboured over the pail with the soapy water as you rubbed the sheets up and down the skiffle board. Labouring on the skiffle board, not to make music, but to make clean, though making a kind of woman's music anyway. Your hands, very slightly purple from the blue powder, that I don't know if it was Jamaican blue powder or blue bag, but it was blue for washing that your brown Jamaican hands knew in the city to which you had come and which left their telltale tints on your hands, that I remember. It is your smell that I remember. The smell of Daz and carbolic soap and blue powder that whitened the sheets and filled the kitchen and layered into your aprons and head tie and never quite left. It is your smell that told of a woman who had learned how to wash and wash well and with pride. Maybe you learned that working as a domestic back in Jamaica before you became coloured immigrant labour in the city to which you arrived and where they hire your hands. But for what? Factory worker, cleaner, auxiliary nurse, seamstress, cook, catering worker? Or maybe you laboured alongside Victoria Williams, seamstressing uniforms for the British Armed Forces, or with Carmel Forbes, as the hands of you both worked the machines that fitted the filaments or fitted the caps on the light bulbs in the electrical factory in Wembley, that manufactured those bulbs that lit the houses of all the people across the city to which you had arrived in pursuit of what? Your dream? Your desire of rights to the city, of being home in the city with rights? In any case, some unit in a factors of production circuit that could only function successfully in the racial capitalism of 1950s, 1960s London if he's and she's entered empire's circuit of labour migration. If he's and she's with brown hands and labouring smells entered into the economy of production and reproduction on racialised and gendered terms. It is your hands that I remember. It is your smell that I remember. It is the sight of you I remember, the sight of you walking down the street, disrupting and recoding the space of one small part of the city to which you had arrived, looking fine and picture book in your brown or blue, maybe striped zoot suit with its high-waisted trousers, thin belt, long double-breasted jacket with white shirt and trilby hat, and oh, so shiny shoes. Dressed in the style that announced your West Indian presence in a white working-class area, fractured from Second World War bombing, derelict from private landlord and state-ignored neglect, even as it located you in a circuit of mondialization, connecting you to black diaspora in Harlem, New York, and Latino diaspora in California, and echoed the image of Lester Young as he conjured the richness of blackness on his saxophone, placing you in circuits of connection that run counter to, even while parallel with, those globalized before globalization circuits of empire capital. Stuart Hall writes, and then one day I came to see that impenetrable England wasn't impenetrable at all. Passing Paddington Station, I saw a stream of black people spilling out into the London afternoon. This was a game-changing moment for me. Suddenly, everything looked different. It's hard to reconstruct the effect of seeing these black West Indian working men and women in London with their strapped-up suitcases and bulging straw baskets, looking for all the world as if they planned a long stay. For them and for me, this was a fateful moment of transition. It is the smell of you I remember, the smell of the black polish that you used to make the shoes that you wore on the streets as you disrupted their racialized class significations into sparkling testimonies to your self-care and self-pride and otherwise black masculine self. It is the smell of you I remember as the Old Spice aftershave emanated from your neck and clung to your shirt, masking for just a little while the rubber from the factory where you were another fungible, coloured immigrant hired hand. The Old Spice aftershave with its symbol on the bottle of the ship that might have been the ship of the Middle Passage, might have been Zong, but which your otherwise self rises up from and out of the work your brown hands does in self-care to dress you in your zoot suit and groom you with the last flourish of cologne dabbed on your chin and neck and says, we have survived and risen up from the depths and are here. See me. Kevin Quashie writes, the meaning of black freedom cannot be indexed to the Enlightenment and cannot be mapped in the syntax of Western norms. There is no end to the condition of coloniality and captivity, no end. But there is life in the midst and aftermath of those interminable conditions. It is the sight of you I remember, the sight of you on Sunday morning on the first floor where your rooms, the ones, Miss Pearl, you shared with Mr. Clarence and Jimmy, your son, where they were, and from which you emerged and walked, seemingly floated down, freed from the weight of your labour for one day, to the front door, out and down the few steep steps leading to the street, and turning left, or was it right, as you made your way along the street, that today, Sunday, was a conveyance toward fullness, not a conduit to labour. The sight of you in your V-neck to show the pearl necklace at your brown throat, just below the knee, petticoat trim dress, tightened with narrow belt at the waist, with cardigan waist length, unbuttoned over the top, or if in winter, your long, narrow lapelled brocaded coat, perhaps with lace collar, certainly with white gloves, big brim hat and handbag held on your lower arm, bent at the elbow, hands smooth and creamed in their rest from labour. Ready to commune with your God alongside your sisterin and brethren and their no bother with them, keep Britain white neighbours you may or may not meet. The sight of you dressed for church and dignity, showing you in full possession of yourself in blackness. Black pride before black pride in black power that was about to come but not quite yet reach. Black being in black womanly life in the city streets to which you were invited but not afforded rights to the city. Invited in the shape of hired hand, not in the echo or recognition of your cry and demand for a transformed and renewed access to urban life. A cry and demand of your presence, unexpected, but danced anyway as you navigated the streets in the finery of your dress and demeanour. It is your hands I remember. It is the sight of you I remember. It is the smell of you I remember, the smell of lavender talcum powder emanating up from your torso, out of the V of your church dress, and vying with the coconut oil that creamed your skin, and the Kananga water that blessed your rooms and the shared landings. The Kananga water that, like Florida water, forged ancestral and perfumed connection between the decaying streets of London that you now walked, to the yards and country of Jamaica, and the basements and stoops of Miami and New York. It is the smell of you I remember, the smell of you in your brownness that showed me blackness in modes other than the coloured immigrant labouring brownness that you had been hailed yet resented, but not reckoned with by the state. It is the sight of you I remember, it is the smell of you I remember. It is your bequests I behold, your bequests that took the form of transfiguring the labour of migration into the labour of hands, into the praxis of living while black, into the joy of dreaming, into the dreaming of ancestral becoming anew. It is your bequests that vibrate in the living of our lives as we occupy the city and move in variation to the rhythm of the bass line that is what you brought with you and kept alive, that we might take up that baton and push in the pulse of our onward becoming anew and in black. labouring hands transformed in multi-vibrational rhythms, in the double stop of being in and in excess of the afterlife. Its ideas otherwise, in its London variation of diasporic production, labouring toward our becoming in refusal and futurity. It is your bequest I behold, as memory, as sight, as sound, as touch, as possibility, as joy. Thank you.